Stay still, please. 4.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us at this particular show from Eye on the Bay. Spotlight on the Bay. I'm sorry, my apologies. Spotlight on the Bay. I am playing a much different role today than I normally would. Usually, I am one of the people that is partnering with my colleague Darren White. However, today he's unavailable, so I'm kind of switching the role with being Darren and also being Dietrich, who's normally our moderator. So today I'm wanting to lead this conversation because it's something that is really, really important to me, the analogy of life. Through our work at Progressive Transitions, as you know, we work with a lot of people that go through a lot of different steps, a lot of different venues, a lot of different ins and outs of life. But one thing we never think about is FIB, fractured, embedded, inherited behavior. I started talking to a colleague about fractures. We started thinking about, oh, I fractured my ankle, I fractured my foot. When you fracture something, it is put in a cast until it heals. But when your relationship is fractured, it doesn't get that type of attention. You keep moving. When you put your elbow or your broken arm in a cast because it is fractured, you don't use it. It becomes stationary. You go back and forth to the doctor. He tells you, don't use it. You're getting better. You're getting therapy. You're getting better. But it's still fractured. So, what I'm thinking about when I think about domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking, and life itself sometimes is how we don't look that we are fractured. We are broken. We don't make that analogy. It's not the fact that our spirit is broken, but not only our spirit, but our heart, our mind, our way of thinking, our way of communicating. It's embedded in us because it was taught to us by somebody else. I can feel like I want to talk to so and so. You don't need to talk to that person because the person that's telling me that is fractured. So we have to look at the fact of what fractured means. If you take your cast off too quick, you will not heal. You have to go through all the necessary therapy, all the necessary processes in order to heal. It's the same way in a domestic violence relationship. You get fractured physically, mentally, emotionally, and psychologically. But what do you do about it? You continue to use that broken limb. You continue fighting with that broken limb, and it doesn't heal. And that broken limb is not really a limb. It's your mind, it's your body, it's your spirit, it's your heart, it's your children. Everything is a part of the fracture. And that's the difference in a fractured foot or a fractured elbow. It's only dealing with one segment. But in life, we are dealing with more than one segment. We are fractured at work, we're fractured at home, we're fractured on the street, we're fractured by the news because things get embedded in us that make us think and feel a certain way that is really not how we want to feel, but we're forced to deal with it.
Trigger.
So at some point, we have to stop and say, okay, I want to take the cast off. I feel like I can move better now, but I'm not sure. So should I leave it on or should I take it off? If I take off the cast in my relationship that is fractured, what's going to happen to me? What am I going to say? Who's going to listen to me? How am I going to feel? So when it becomes embedded in us, that's the feeling of being fractured. It's like, I'll never feel better. I'll never have a good relationship. Nobody will ever understand me. This is where we come up with a behavior pattern that becomes dangerous because we really don't have anybody to go to and say, you know what, I'm hurting. My fracture still hurts. You are still hurting me. We're not able to do that. So today I want to take fracture into more intimate relationships. And today I have Bilal with me and I have Dietrich. And I must tell you, I am so excited to be the commentator, to sit here and talk to them, two men and me. You know, men don't talk to women a lot. Women talk to
No,
men.
we don't.
No, you don't.
No, we don't.
But I think that I appreciate so how you are willing to discuss your fracture
Yes.
and how you want to do therapy to heal it.
Yes.
Is it physical therapy? Is it mental therapy?
Right.
What do you want to heal from? The cycle or what? So I will start with Bilal.
Thank you, Norma. First of all, thank you for being here to kind of give us a guidance through this. What I would like, the result that I'm looking for is confirmation. Confirmation of what is real and what is not real, especially in our most, or I should say my most intimate relationships. One, my family, my daughter, we talk about things that took place early in her life. There were situations with mainly her mother and I that didn't pan out well. But she also witnessed the fact that there was a measure of us trying to work it out. She was able to see that on a constant because I kept bringing that. She was, at the time, I'm thinking to myself, well, this is my only child, so I want to make sure that I have a connection. Even if it's a small one, I want to have a connection. So I kept trying to keep those communication doors open. They got shattered and closed a couple of times, which made it difficult for me to then reach back again to try to make connections and to get some confirmation and have a relationship, something that's real, something that's wholesome. And it didn't pan out like I really wanted it to, and I put it on myself as well. It was something I didn't do, or I didn't do enough to create the relationship, or a closer enough relationship where she would call me and we could talk about it. It wasn't there. So, it seems like it's trying to turn the corner now, but that part of our relationship still bothers me. It still plagues me. Why did it go that far deep to the negative?
It's still fractured.
Yes.
It's still fractured. And like you said, all the things that you tried to do to make it heal
Right.
and make it mend,
Right.
they didn't work.
Right.
But you decided, I'm going to get up and deal with this fracture anyway as best I can.
Right.
And now you're going into the element of where, okay, now I'm making a turn. Now it's feeling a little better. Now I can move my hand better. I can turn my head better. The healing is taking place slowly. And I think when we are fractured, sometimes it's so deep. It's so deep that we don't think we will ever get out of this. But I think when it comes to our children, we have to remember that many times what's fractured is the message that they got, and the person that they got the message from is fractured.
Okay.
So hurt people hurt people. So if someone doesn't want you to have a relationship with someone, like you're going to take that away from me, or you're not going to be able to move in on us and they're with me and you left or you did whatever you did, that's the fracture they're feeling.
Right.
And finally, when you decide, okay, I'm done with this. I want to now open a new door. I am whole now. Health, wholeness, and healing.
Right.
I am now ready to be able to have this dialogue and to reach out, to reach my fractured arm out.
Right.
It's working. I'm ready to reach out now and talk to my daughter.
Right.
And you have to remember, if she doesn't respond right away, it's because she's fractured. So
I needed to hear it that way.
yeah, because she's like, what happened? And like you said, sometimes someone gets a story disseminated to them, and
Right.
then you come along and you say, that's not what happened.
Right. Right.
So how do you undo something that has been already done?
Right.
You know, it's like when someone hits somebody. I didn't hit you. I didn't hit you in the eye. I hit you in the neck. I didn't choke you. I knocked you down. This is what they tell the police. And they're looking at the person. I didn't hit her.
It didn't hurt.
There, I didn't hit her. But she's got a black eye. Well, she fell and hit her head.
Right.
So again, we have to start looking at the realization of what goes on in our life and give it a name. But compare it to something. Give it a name. It's not just a father-daughter relationship that didn't work.
Right.
It is my wife and I didn't get along. So
Right.
now it's going from wife to you to daughter to her
Right.
back to you, and now the daughter is trying to figure out how I can work through this. It's fear.
A lot of miscommunication there.
Yeah, it's fear.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like I want to believe you, I want to listen to you, but if you tell me this, how can I take it back to my mom and say,
Right.
you know what? I found out that it wasn't what you said. It was different.
Right.
Yeah,
So in my mind,
yeah.
I'm thinking, did she do that? And what happened? If you did it, what did your mother say in response to you mentioning that?
Right, but remember, when you're dealing with a fracture, it's fragile. Fracture is fragile in
Yeah.
people, in our bodies. Our mind gets fractured.
Right.
Till we're like, I don't want to deal with that. So if you're going back and talk to her about that, I don't want to talk about it.
True.
If you're going to your mother's house and tell her that I hit you and you call the police, I'm not going back over and visit her ever again. We start to pull back.
True.
So fracturing is not only physical, it's mental, it's emotional, it's psychological. It is damaging.
Well,
if
this
it
one's
doesn't
totally emotional
heal
for me.
right. Yeah,
It's emotional
Yeah.
for me
yeah.
because I'm always trying to have a relationship, but it always came up to this line that she wouldn't walk across. Now, after a certain amount of time had elapsed, then there was lines that I didn't want to cross.
Right, right.
I said,
Right.
oh, okay, well, are you making me have to accept this? You know, do you want to have a relationship or not? Let's just put it straight here in the front of each other so we can go yay or nay.
It's not a yea or nay process.
Right,
Yeah, it's
and
not,
I didn't
yeah.
want it to be that definite.
That definite, yeah. That definitive, yeah.
Right, but I didn't know what else to say, Norma, really. I didn't know how else to come at her, in regard to, look, how are we going to, rebuild this? So she responded by saying, well, I'm confused on what's from your side and from mom's side, because mom's telling me this, you're telling me that. I said, okay. I said, well, I don't want to confuse you. I said, so in regard to whatever it is that she's saying, I have no response unless I know the situation of what you're talking about. I said, but I'm not going to add into the issue that could be a problem. I just want to know, where can we start to have a relationship, an honest one.
How can we put all of that behind us?
Right.
And I think when our relationships have been fractured and some of them have been severed because of the fracture, we have to figure out how we're going to tell somebody, look, that it's not saying I don't want to relive it, but I want us to start fresh.
Yes.
Yeah, let's just start fresh. And that's the same thing. I want to deviate back. That's the same thing in a domestic violence relationship. A lot of times we had a fight. Okay, it's over with, it's done. I don't want us to keep reliving it. I don't want you to keep sleeping on the couch. I don't want us to, I want to be able to come home and come in the door and not have to schedule my visits. How do we get past that? But again, we got to look at the fact that you hurt me.
Right.
So a fracture hurts.
And it's a fracture on both sides.
It's a fracture on both sides. We always think sometimes that the perpetrator isn't hurt, but the perpetrator is actually very fractured. That's why they do what they do. In a domestic violence relationship, the person that raises their hand and does fatal peril and draws back and does something, when they walk out of that door and get in their car and leave you there, they're really hurting on the inside. But society teaches us, don't believe him. That's what he does.
True.
Yeah, don't listen to that. This is what we do. This is what we tell people. That's what he does. So with your daughter, you're reaching out, you're extending the olive branch, you're telling her, look, I'm your father, not I'm your father, and you should listen to me. I'm your father, and I want to have a relationship with you.
Right.
How are we going to do it?
Right.
You got to think, you got to get creative.
Right.
Yeah. Are we going to Starbucks? Are we going out to dinner? But at the same time, you're not trying to buy her. But
Right.
but you're telling her, I just need where you and I can sit down and talk about us.
Right.
And that's what never happens in a fractured relationship of any kind. There's no us. There's you and there's me.
Right.
And so how do
And-
we come together? Yeah.
Well, I know that we've come to the point to the let's say come to the table. We've come to the fact to the point of where we do call each other now.
Oh, good.
We're-
That's a
we're-
start.
Right. It's a start, and because she has her daughter,
Who is your granddaughter?
my granddaughter, and I'm again, pining to keep a door open
Mm-hmm.
for a relationship with her and my granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so but I just with us starting to at least call each other right now, it's kind of a good thing. I thought that would cease and desist. I really did.
Mm-hmm.
But I think she's now standing on her own mindset with what she wants to bring to the relationship now. I'm feeling that.
Good, good. And you have to allow her to process it the way she wants to process it.
Okay.
You can't say, well, I told you this, I shared that with you, I shared that with you, I
Right.
did this. Okay, so now what do you want?
Right.
Yeah, no, it's like you're giving her the time.
I've had that.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I have.
Yeah, you're giving her the time, you're giving her the space. If she doesn't bounce right back, you're still not walking away.
Right.
You're not going to re-wound her. You're not going to re-fracture her, because if you turn around and say, I'm done, I'm not going to try to do this with you anymore, she is going to be re-fractured.
Yes.
So you just got to give it time and space and time to heal. And it may not come as fast as you want, but persistence.
Well, that's really,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
really it.
Persistence is,
Right.
it's like going to physical therapy. You're like, okay, I'm done with this, but I got to go once a week to
Right.
heal my fracture
Right.
and to get stronger. And that's what, maybe what you want to tell her, you know what, I want to work with you to get stronger.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's not you're not saying she's weak. You're saying, I want to work with you to get stronger about us.
Yes, I heard that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want us to get better together.
Well, I'm gonna definitely work with that process starting from today, and so I'm supposed to talk with her. So I'll come with that, and the next time we talk, I'll give you a scenario.
Absolutely. And you know you can talk to me about it anytime.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate it. Thank you, Norma.
And now I am switching to Mr. Dietrich.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Diedrich. Normally the host of Put It on the Table. Mother just passed away, so yeah, this hits home.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the trip, driving all the way there and seeing my mother lying there, I just can't help but think of all she went through to get where she was at. Especially when it was just me and her in the beginning.
Mm.
And then you meet this stepfather who doesn't accept her son and brings all his demons with him into the relationship. As a child, 3 years old, and watching your mother abused over the littlest things, food is cold, just anything, just lashing out, and you feeling like, what is he angry about?
Right.
Why are you so angry at this woman who does everything for you?
Right.
You know, and the only reason that and then you as the child is like, and you want to protect your mom, and you're just like, why is she with this man? And why is she with this person that she could do so much better? And he's looking at you as, because you're the first man. I'm the 1st. I'm always going to be the first. So he automatically doesn't like me. And sending that, and then, you know, what else can I do? And you're feeling like everything over the years is just meant to derail your success or ability to have success, because he doesn't want to see you successful, because he couldn't do it.
Right.
Right. He had a built-in resentment.
And the resentment because we were darker than him. The ink spot and the road tar and the names you're calling my mom. This beautiful soul that does nothing but cater to you as a dependent. I love my mother, but I could never be with a dependent. You just have no options. And I didn't, when you're young, you can't see both sides. You can't see where he's coming from.
Right.
You just see what's happening.
In front of
And you don't know why, and you're just like, I'm a good kid. I get good grades, or what? Why do you not like me?
Right.
And so when I went down there, I talked to him. I said, you know, me and my sister, I said, I really got to know. When we moved, and because we were in the Vietnam War, and we were in Philippines, and when we moved from the Philippines to here, I said, why did you move us to this neighborhood where no one looked like us? And you set all these rules. Like, all of a sudden there's no Christmas. All of a sudden there's no nothing. Like, so one minute I had Christmas, next minute no Christmas. Like, all the rules have changed, and all of a sudden, but we're in this neighborhood. And he's like, I didn't want to live or be around black people. You made that decision for us? I said, you didn't realize what other problems we would encounter in this neighborhood in the early 80s and late 70s?
Right.
But then I adapted. I had to adapt. But then I'm looking at this man my mother chose, who I have to respect. And I'm understanding that I'm getting smarter and smarter than he is. Because he hasn't gone. There's no ceiling.
Right.
Like, there was a picture that I had of him in this karate. And I was like, I had it on my wall, like, because I'm an alpha person. And that's the line of people I come from, the Watsons.
Right.
It was just nothing like him. And then the children were coming. And I was like, and they were nothing like me.
Wow.
And then he said he had got attacked in his neighborhood. His father had passed away because he was beat to death in the alleyway in the early 60s
Okay.
by some black people. And he got beat up by darker black people in his neighborhood consistently, and took that into his relationship. And instead of fighting that or trying to build yourself from that, you beat up your family.
You know, I want to just interject something that I'm feeling. What you're talking about, not even just from a skin color of not wanting to be with black families, but also there's so many younger children that are going through what you're going through about being smart, being there, being with my mother, and they're experiencing what you're experiencing, what you experience right now.
Right.
Why is this man here?
Right.
My dad's in jail.
Right.
And you brought this man in the house and he's abusing you. But there's nothing I can do. I can't help you. And this is how we grow up. This is how they grow up, to have that misfit. Because it's no fit.
Right.
The resentment. But, you know, this man was so fractured when he came into your life in more ways than one.
Yeah. And I could see it.
Yeah.
And I think he knew I could see it. And then as I got older, and I think in 6th grade, then I hit 6'4". I've been this tall since 6th grade. And then filling out, and then the phone ringing off the hook. And then, as you're progressing, and you're still trying to figure out who you are, where you fit in,
Right.
while navigating the neighborhood you live in,
Right.
the Church of Jehovah's Witnesses, and the rules that they're setting for you, and you don't know, this is not me. and you can't say no because your parents are telling you you have to do this, and but everything in your body is saying, why am I here? Well, what? This is not.
That's your question.
This is not. This is not why I want. I don't want. I just told them I don't want to do this. I could do this. I can give talks all day. I did talks in district assemblies. Everyone loved my voice. They loved, but it was. This is not what I want to do.
Right.
I'm like, the world is so big. Why do I have to eat manna? That's not. I want to eat. I want to go and experience the world.
Right.
And he said, "That's an apostate. You're talking like an apostate because I'm perfect." Okay, you know that I've been here since the beginning, right? Well, I know what you did behind closed doors with the women at your job, the pornos you're listening to at night while mom's in the bedroom, the phone calls late at night, the screaming out at night God's name because your demons are bothering you. I know why you left and then you left Citrus Heights and moved to Houston, Texas. You took my mom away from all of her family. I said, I was sitting here driving, I drove that trip. 28 hours you drove away. You were running from something. You took mom away from everybody. And I'm like, to another neighborhood worse. You know, Texas in 89? I'm like, he's like, I didn't know. I could write a whole book about what you don't know. You took mom over here. You know, I would never take my woman away from her family. I make sure she's close with her family. That is it's necessary for your wife to be with her family.
Right.
So she feels connected and grounded.
Right.
You just want her to depend on you.
But Dietrich, when you have those wounds that don't heal, they're undiagnosed, they're unaddressed, they're never looked at, they're never talked about because somebody wouldn't dare approach that subject or
Right.
those subjects with him, he's going to stay in that cycle. He was in a cycle of abuse with himself first. Many times we always think about the cycle of abuse of abusing somebody else. You can be in your own emotional, psychological, financial, spiritual cycle. You are your own batterer. And then you're going to inflict that on somebody else because that's the only thing you know how to do. You don't know how to come and say, look, I need some help with this. You're not going to even ask somebody, what do you think? What can we do? Or what do I need to do? Or what would you like for me to do? It's about them. And he is in that cycle, and he never got out of it. No. And he inflicted his pain
On the whole family.
on the whole family.
Because
He fractured everybody.
Wow, yeah. Because you know, it takes, you know, time has gone by, and you know, I'm dealing with my family, I'm building my life, and to come back and see how everything's regressed for them and how they live, and the fact that all their sons are still living with them and can't live on their own, and they're bipolar. He was bipolar. All of his kids are bipolar, and you're dealing with this, and I'm just like, it was like a nightmare Mom had to deal with all these years, just, and then, oh, well, yeah, they don't like us very much out here. Why would you move to Houston? Why? Texas, of all places.
You don't know what he was running from.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
What he was running from. The
yeah,
phone
but-
calls.
right.
I understood when the phone calls were coming from
Right,
the Child Protective Service that something had been. So I knew.
Right, but you also, what was he running to?
He was running away.
Right, but to what?
Right.
Because his fracture was so deep. And
I could tell, you know,
Yeah.
what was bothering me, and not to badmouth any particular religion, but the religion I was in, and the congregation that I was in, it seemed like he was catering to them, and allowing them to dictate what we were to be as a family. And what bothered, and it would bother me, I said, you're letting, and it's not a racial thing, but you're letting white people tell me how I'm supposed to be as a black person, how I should wear my hair, how I'm supposed to speak, how I'm supposed to, if this is how God made me, why is it their right to tell you, tell me, your black son, how to be? Who are they to tell me that?
Right.
And that's the thing about religion. You put those on top of the problems you're already going through, and because just like you said, those fractures, I think the fractures didn't enable him from taking care of the family, so he allowed the congregation to take care of the family. He let the congregation take care of the family. Oh, you deal with it. And so now they're running our family. Oh, don't do this, don't do that. I would like to play basketball. No, you're not. We don't. You're not allowed to play basketball. It's not allowed. I said, and I remember sitting down with the elder, and I said, well, if you go door to door and you knocked on Magic Johnson's door and he wanted to become a Jehovah's Witness, would you tell him he can't play basketball anymore? Well, that's a special circumstance. Oh.
Special. Okay, sorry.
So I'm not a special circumstance. and so this construction of this religion on top of, I always called it colonists. You know, trying to tell black folks what to preach and how to preach and who to preach to. That's what this felt like to me. And, you know, I'd be the first one as a 5-year-old. There's no dinosaurs in the Bible. Where are the dinosaurs? I had so many questions, and there was never any answers. It's like, oh, yeah, we'll get back to you on that. You know.
Devil's price.
So many questions and so many, but there isn't any. How are they going to fit on the ark?
Right.
So where were they? Biggest hoax? I don't know. You know. But, and then when I was looking at him, and me and my sister, which is his daughter, were talking to him, and all those pieces fell into place. So I'm 53, and I've hated this man. He's never even met my son because of what he did to my mom and all these things, and me just trying everything not to be like him.
Right.
Because that was my only example.
Right.
Fighting tooth and nail. Let me go live with Grandpa. No, I need you here with me. I know why you needed me here with you, because everybody was crazy. It was the only thing.
Everybody was fractured.
Everybody,
Everybody was.
and you know, back then it was, oh, give them Ritalin.
Yeah,
Give them
exactly.
Ritalin.
Yeah.
all of them
I
had
remember
Ritalin.
that.
Yeah.
And so, and then
I
when they
remember
get
that.
older,
Yeah.
they try to figure out how to supplement that.
Right.
See, you've been putting them on drugs this whole time. I mean, I'm so sad to see my mom, see all the stuff she had been through. She was this beautiful model before she met him, traveling the world. She was in the newspapers and magazines, and then got with this person who I just never thought he was intelligent. I felt he was, I was number one. You know, well, the 6th grade, I had an IQ of 210.
That's big.
I didn't know what that meant. They said, oh yeah, aptitude. I skipped 2 grades, and I'm headed somewhere.
You're a
But there was
sponge on
no,
this
there
road.
was no. He couldn't take me anywhere.
Right.
If you're jealous of me, I can't go nowhere with you then. And I'm a kid. How are you? You know, you can't go nowhere with it. Now you're stuck, and you just do what I say.
Yeah, and not as I do. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've seen happen with a lot of men that I have encountered in the prison system and in the reentry system, that they lost their voice because somebody took it away from them, and then they had to fight to get it back. And instead of having someone to sit down and say, look, it's this, it's this, it's this, being able to say, okay, I'm going to take ownership in taking your voice from you. I want you to get it back. I want to help you. It's never addressed. It's never addressed. So you try to find it. You try to find it and still have respect for the person.
Right.
As much as you possibly can until you reach that point to say, there's something wrong here.
Right.
And we don't ever think about you know, how wounded some people really, really are. And they're not able to tell anybody they're wounded because they have to act out on it instead of being able to talk about it.
Right. That
And
was
been
my
able
problem.
to put it on the table.
Right.
They cannot put it on the table because that's not what you're supposed to do. You stay in a child's place. You don't think, you don't speak, you don't talk. Then when all of a sudden you start to come out into this point of your life where, wait a minute, I got a brain.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I don't know which one it was in The Wizard of Oz that didn't have a brain.
Was it a Tin Man?
The
Was
Tin
it the
Man.
Tin Man?
The
Yeah,
Tin
well,
Man.
all of a sudden the Tin Man got a brain. And he started reciting algebra on the thing or whatever. Wait, you've always had that. You had that brain. That's why you could see through this person. But he, again, was
Some of
back
the
to our
deformity
main
there.
word. He had the fracture embedded in him.
It was
It was
horrible.
deep.
It was
Oh.
horrible.
It was horribly deep.
Yeah.
And when it's that deep,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
your house is a nightmare.
Very deep.
And then you're inviting other families to live in the house who are just as fractured as you are.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
it is
you
it is
can't
it,
turn-
it, it's
turn
such
away from it.
there's so many dark days and you just you don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And you know, I was always hiding under my blanket, and I've read so many books just
In
to
the
be
dark,
in my
yeah.
own world. You're just trying to escape to a different world.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm speaking for any kid that goes through that, especially the
Yeah.
stepson.
Yeah.
And man, it's a powerful thing when the person your mother marries is weak like that. It's just
It damages. I know for me, when my mother remarried, it was damaging for me because the person she married, I think very much like Dietrich's family, he didn't connect with me at all. Not at all. We barely had conversations, and I think it was 5 years they were together. And I told my mother this too. I said, she said, well, she asked me one day, came home from school. She said, so have you seen Jerry? Did he call us? I said, no, ma'am, he didn't call. Okay, so I saw worry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She looked away I'm like, I know that look,
Mhm.
And 2 weeks later, the same look came up. But she didn't ask me, but I saw the look.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the 1 week later after that was when I saw serious violence. He was lying about where he was.
Mm-hmm.
My mother busted him out. Said, no, I know he was. He was doing this. He was with so and so. And he said, you're lying, and struck her. Oh, I'm standing there and I see him do this. All I could do was react. I mean, I'm 12 years old. So I dive on his back. I don't know what I was going to do, but all I could do was dive on his back. You hit my mother.
You're right.
You hit my mother. So he picks me up, drops me, says, you better. My mother came up with a straight razor that was on the side of the bed. He froze, and I saw life in a different space then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So now my mother's not the one being tortured. She's torturing him. So I'm going, oh my God, what is going on? So my dealing with that type of fracture from then came all the way up to me to meet me now.
Yep.
But I never got clarity from that. Other than was what happens in families. Sometimes the mom and the daddy don't.
Well, that's how we're conditioned. This is what happens.
Yes.
Everybody pulls a straight razor, somebody takes a skillet, hits somebody backs the. And when people tell me, well, this is just how it is in my house, I'm like, that's how it is in your house, or that's how it was? Or
Right.
did you bring that with you? Well, this is all I know.
Right.
it's how
But
it
sometimes
is
you're afraid
in
to
a
learn
lot of
something
homes.
else.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how
Sometimes you're scared.
Right.
because you have nobody to take it to within your family, so it just gets in that cycle.
Right.
And you go to your sister and say, you know what? I want to change what I do. I don't want to be like dad. I don't want to be like mom. I love them, but I want a different life for myself. And that person can look at you and say, why? Why do you want to be different? What do you want? Because when we have been in this cyclone like a tumbleweed, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then once it reaches its maximum, it's just going to keep spinning.
There's
unless
so
somebody
many
says,
people
"I'm
in
done."
that cyclone. There's so many people that can't get to that other higher of illumination of thought to where we are from, our core existence as black men, as alpha black men,
Right.
as leaders, as kings, as warriors on this planet, have lost that. The queens that respected their king lost that.
And that's the
I've
problem a
lost
lot of
it.
our young black men are having now. They
Right.
don't have it. They don't know about it.
Right. They didn't get it.
They didn't get
They
it.
have, it's in there.
Yeah.
And
But
people just have to believe it and pull it out because we're born with it. But so programmed to diminish who we are. No, keep
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That.
So they sat there and they watched us from afar to learn how they could get to us. Those peaceful people, the strong men, the Hutus, the Tutsis, they're sitting there just watching. How can we take everything from them? The richest continent on the planet was Canaan, Africa. And they took it.
Yeah.
yeah, and we have, you know,
And-
when we talk about all of this, we have centuries of fracture.
Centuries.
Centuries.
That's,
Centuries.
That's what's big. That's
Yeah.
what's mind-boggling.
Yeah, we have centuries.
When you
of-
talk about it to youngsters, they don't realize, like, you know, we come from royalty.
Yeah,
Our people
For
come
them
from
to
royalty.
even understand that
The
image.
fact
Yeah.
that we have gone through the slavery and the beatings and the killings and the forced everything,
Right.
breeding
Yeah.
sons with mothers, the forced breeding, all the things they went through in the South to kill a person's culture, to kill where we come from.
to
So
fracture you.
it fracture us from
To
never
fracture you,
never
yeah.
knowing where we're. That's why.
fracture you.
Why do you think the noses are shot off in Egypt? Nobody can deny that nose.
Right, right. And when you think about
True.
all that's going on now with our young children and our middle-aged children that are 14, 15, 16, who we see on the news who are breaking in cars or doing whatever they're doing, mom sometimes, who has been the only one that has remained there trying to put the pieces together
We can only do so
of
much.
the broken plate,
Right.
trying to straighten the bone
Right.
out that's
Right.
been bent for so long. She is it.
Yeah.
You know, and we have to start to think about, you know, I tell parents all the time if I'm at a school or something, I always tell kids, let me talk to your mom. Oh, you don't want to talk to my mom? And I'm like, okay, you know. And I'm like, you don't want to talk to my mom, Miss Ward, you just don't want to talk to my mom. And then I'll wait a couple of weeks and I'll go back and I'll say, so tell me what's wrong with your mom. What isn't wrong with my mom? They have already formulated this opinion
Before they knew why.
before they even know why. It's what I heard. Well, my aunt said this about my mother, and my dad said this about my mother, and my dad left my
Right,
mother,
right.
and there starts the fracture cycle.
Right.
So therefore, you know, I'm just going to do what I got to do. So you don't need to talk to my mother about my behavior because she's not going to do anything about it.
Right.
Because she didn't do anything about what happened to her.
Yeah. Right.
So it all comes back down to the root cause of the problem that we talked about in our first put it on the table.
Right.
What is the root cause? Yeah, we can do anger management, we can do counseling, we can do therapy. But if somebody is not willing to raise their hand and say, I need help,
Right.
it'll never happen.
Right.
And you raised your hand and said, I need help with my daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can't do it by myself. And that's where we have to get.
Right.
That we cannot be too proud and be like your mom, who was a model and a beautiful woman who, but deep down in her heart, this person stripped her
Yes.
of everything she really was because she was not what she wanted him to be, and he was not what
Right.
she really wanted, but she didn't know what to do. So you ride it out like you riding a horse in a race.
Right.
Somebody's going to get to the finish line and somebody's not.
Right.
And that's the reason why we latch on to things that are so unhealthy, because we've never gotten healthy. You know, that's why I try to bring everybody
That's
in.
a good one.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry to, but you're right. I just saw that.
Yeah.
You're right. So all the times I'm thinking, well, I grew up, and you didn't grow up, and so whatever's, again, I don't want to be a person that puts it on anybody else, Norma. Okay, I'll take whatever my responsibility is,
Absolutely.
but you have to do it as well.
That's right.
And
That's
so
right.
we both have to stand here, disrobed and say, okay, yeah, you're right. I look ugly on that. So I'm trying to find that way to be able to say that. To
Yeah,
to
we
her.
have to be able to find the way to say, I'm sorry.
Right.
That is a big part of healing your fracture, especially when our focus has been in putting it on the table, intimate partner violence. For somebody to look at you and say, look, I am sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to do that. Well, by that time, 50 people have been in your head telling you, don't even think
True.
about it.
True.
Don't listen to that. Don't go
True.
for that. He's going to do this again. So sometimes in your own mind,
You have to say
you
sorry
want
for
to
them.
say, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I should listen. But see, that takes work. That means I got to do some work. If I'm going to listen, I got to do some work.
Right.
I don't,
Yeah.
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 I got to work. I
Yeah.
can't, what am I going to do with this? Well, how am I going to do that? So I think today we have run the complete circle and we put it all the way around on this table.
Yes.
And it comes back to the fact that we have to work on healing our fracture and giving ourselves permission to heal our fracture. So on behalf of my panelists today, on behalf of Darren White, who's not here, I want to thank you for being a part of Spotlight on the Bay today. And I hope we said something that you will walk, drive, or jog down the street with and say, you know what? I got to think about this.
Right.
I need to put it on the table.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Norma. Thank you very much. All right.